Have you ever wanted to be Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, racing through Sherwood Forest in search of adventure? A Jest of Robin Hood by GMT Games lets you experience this, but how successfully? We will let you know here on Legendary Tactics. So, A Jest of Robin Hood. We've played this
Yes.
game relatively obsessively over the last couple weeks.
Couple of weeks we've been playing a lot. Yes, we have been. And
Yeah,
you've been it's kind of a coin light kind of game. I think they classify it as.
the Irregular Conflicts Series. So it's
Okay.
meant to be an introduction to the coin game,
So what do you
coin
think
games.
right off the hop? Do you think it kind of it does that?
Yeah, I think it does, and they simplify some things, and I'm basically fine with the changes. I think that they kind of kept only the elements that really matter, and because a lot of coin games have a lot of chrome, and the reason why, we call it chrome, like extra, rules and features and stuff. But a lot of that is because you're trying to convey some history and you're
Yep.
trying to, portray a historical situation. With Robin Hood, you got a little more
It's
freedom
lore. More
to,
lore, eh?
yeah, it's a legend. So you can have a little more leeway as far as how the actual mechanics work. But I really think the designer Frederick Serval really made this um, a coin light game, but in all the right ways. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of agree with you. I think that he pulled a lot of different levers to make this game really intriguing.
Yeah,
Uh, there's a lot of neat, yeah, game mechanic to it. I also feel that it is pretty immersive in the whole Robin Hood kind of theme and genre. Like it kind of does get you into it. So I think
yeah,
that's a real positive stride for the game.
yeah. No, I
Um,
totally agree. I think it does feel like, I mean, thematically, it's one of the stronger games out there for this, where you really feel like you're the sheriff and you're cracking down on, the peasants, and you know what I mean, and being a big meanie
and as
and
Robin Hood, you're kind of hiding out in the forest and you're trying to wait for your moment to strike, and then you're
yeah,
you're also trying to just be really disruptive and here and there and just kind of being a real fly in the ointment of the sheriff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what do you like best about this game overall? Where what really
Uh,
shines for you?
You know what? I feel like it's really on a kind of a knife's edge. Like it just kind of, you just never know how things are going to go. There's like a quiet tension that kind of builds through the entire game.
Yeah.
And I've felt it in all the games I've played really.
It is
So
a very punishing game because it's
yeah,
it's not a long
absolutely.
game, and one or two bad moves and you can really like sink your side.
Yes, I would totally concur. In fact, I've seen that happen. So
Yeah, yeah.
when we were first
Well, I've
learning,
seen that happen too.
when I was,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I totally agree. I think that, and you know what is a very welcome element to that tension is the bluffing,
yes,
right?
yes,
Bluffing, where's Robin Hood really?
right.
There's a
Which
wagon
carriage is a
making its
trap?
way towards Nottingham. Is it a trap? Is it 5 shillings? What is it?
Right.
Right? And you
Yes.
have to bluff and kind of maneuver around there, around that aspect. And I think that's really fun. What else did you like about it?
I like I like the simplicity of the Justice Order track.
Yeah,
It's a nice little push-pull track that keeps things pretty straightforward as far as tracking your points.
yep,
Um, the idea of your guys going to the prison, that's kind of a neat twist.
yeah,
Adding in characters into the Rob deck, I think is a really neat
yep.
uh
The Bishop of Hereford and the Guy or Guy of
Eve is
Gisborne.
born. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. And having that kind of that unpredictability.
yep.
So those are some key ones for me for sure. How about you?
Well, I'll tell you, I really like the robbery mechanic.
Yep.
I like the fact if you rob someone on the road, you don't know who it's going to be. You flip the card. Could be a noble knight. Could be the Guy of Gisborne, Guy of Gisborne, whatever.
Yes.
It could be some
A monk.
monks,
Could be some monks.
and they're pretty much defenseless. So And so, and I like you also get to choose whether you're a nice robber or whether you fleece
Or you
them.
you you take them, that's right, to the bank.
Yeah, but I like that because there is a card in the deck which has some consequence. It's not massive. I think it's if there's four more victims, then the sheriff gets a victory point.
Right.
But so it's not game changing, but it might be enough to make you think about it if the card hasn't come out yet, or you think it might be coming up, or at some point. It's a victory point, which in this game it can be a pretty slim margin of victory. So that could cost you the game if you're a little bit too mean as a robber, as a thief.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
but I
correct.
think
Yeah.
it's really fun. Like I just like that aspect of you're not sure who you're gonna run into and everything. And sometimes they're strong in defense, and sometimes they're very weak. And you can just, you if you and it, so if you choose to rob with one merry man, you run the risk. You roll the dice. You
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
do well or not. And I like also that it uses different die depending on where you rob. So if you're in
Location.
the
Yep.
forest, you're in your wheelhouse. You get a much better, more favorable roll. If you're out in the open, or if you're in a submissive parish where they're not totally on
You have
your side.
a little more of a harder dice to roll with,
Yeah, yeah.
or less
I
odds.
think
Yeah.
that's a really neat mechanic.
So one
So
thing I did want to add in with that whole rob mechanic is that also if you pick that more punishing option where you're going to really get a better return, you also often will have to give up more too if you lose. Like your men go to
yeah.
jail, or they're scattered or whatever the case is. So you often you'll have a negative consequence beyond just it going to the victim pile. So,
Yes, yes. It maybe gives the sheriff some shillings or
oh, that's right,
sends your
ship some
merry men
money.
to jail or something, and that's
Yeah.
uh, that's neat.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the map and the art and everything people have talked about what a beautiful game it is,
It
um,
is. It
and
is a
it
very
is.
nice
It's a
game. Yeah.
really really nice looking game.
The cardboard
Um,
is beautiful. Like I know
yep.
we played this digitally tonight, but and we've played digitally over the last little bit just because of circumstance. But the game we've gotten together to play it is a beautiful game.
Yes. Yeah. So what about downsides? What do you feel is a downside for you?
Well, for me, we've played a lot, and I've noticed games can get swingy a little bit. That was one thing I kind of wondered about, but I
How do
think
you
that
how do you mean like we talked about earlier where it can kind
yeah,
of
like for example, in the game we showcased, you won 7-zip, right? Like you you buried the needle on the scoreboard.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's what I'm talking about. And the game didn't really hover around the +1, -1 mark. It was
yeah,
like pretty comfortably yours all game.
yes,
So I know earlier I talked about those, the quiet tension, but you can run into those kind of games where it's like a clear, decisive winner.
yes. And you can
So
absolutely make it can be very punishing that way where you can make a bad move and it can just cost you the game.
and it can
If
happen early in the game too, which I find is interesting because the one game that it was particularly noticeable, it happened like a third of the way to the game, and it was pretty much a death blow for me.
yeah. Now
So,
now do you find the game balanced?
that was one of the swingy things I talked about, and I wondered about when I noticed that swingy nature from time to time.
Mhm.
But I think on the whole, it is as we develop more skill and with the game and more familiarity with the cards and how they come out, et cetera, et cetera. I think the game on the whole will be balanced. What about you?
Yeah, yeah. It I don't know, it does feel a little bit like it's Robin Hood has the harder mountain to climb in many ways. But again, I mean, it may just be that the way opportunities are taken and capitalized on too. But it's sometimes, yeah, it can certainly feel like the game that we did have one game the other night, and you were Robin Hood, and I didn't even stand a chance. I didn't even get my carriages go. I'd never
You didn't
confiscated
get a carrot.
once.
Yeah, yeah.
And but by the same token as the sheriff, if you're sending carriages, uh,
It's tough.
multiple carriages to Nottingham,
Yeah.
you're probably doing pretty well because you're getting a bunch of money, a bunch of victory points. and it's a pretty tough, if the infrastructure is in there to kind of interfere with that, um,
Right.
it can be pretty tough for Robin Hood. But yeah, or if Robin Hood has a whole bunch of merry men in jail, sure you can spring Robin Hood with Swashbuckle, but what about all those other guys that are stuck there?
That's
And
right.
if you're low on merry men, you're pretty sunk for that, and you don't get
Yes.
them back that fast. You get half of them back. So if you have I think it's rounded down as well. So if you have five merry men in jail, you're only getting two back um, at the
The,
Royal
the prop
Inspection
card, roll
card.
inspection. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you don't get back a ton of them. Like it's pretty um yeah, it's pretty
Punishing.
harsh if they're in jail actually.
I
So
think
you
I think
yeah.
as we're discussing it, I think you have to be pretty cagey with this game.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I think this game requires a fair bit of cautious play, but
Yes.
striking when the right moment hits
Yes, I would
in
agree
the
with
right
that.
way.
Yep.
One thing I have noticed too is the events are often I think you got to really follow the idea that all that glitters is not gold. So
Yes.
when the event is offering you a free VP, you know, it's I've gotten burned on that one where it's like, okay, because the VPs you think it's only 7 points to win, right? So
Yeah.
they feel valuable, but so much more can be done. And sometimes you need to forego those free VPs
Yes.
to accomplish board position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how about you,
Um
Data? Was there any downsides for you?
Um, there wasn't no, I don't nothing jumps out at me as being a really terrible kind of downside. I find that I guess if there's one thing, I think the game would be a little bit, even though it's an introductory coin, I do feel that it's still not easy to teach and play. I don't know if Flash would sit down and learn this one, and
Right.
spend the time. It's fine. It's not difficult, but the interactions between the plots and deeds and of the two different sides, I think are intricate enough that you really need to spend some time with this one. It's, I can see how it would be promoted as a light coin game, but it's still there's some it's not complexity. I don't know what to exactly call it. It may be the word depth comes to mind, where it's a very deep game, and if you have a player who really gets the interactions, they'll just crush a newer player at this game.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh, for
know,
sure. For
and
sure.
so I think it's not a downside exactly, but it's just I think you need to make sure that you're willing to invest more time than you might expect into this when it's deceptively simple, I would say.
That's a
And
that's it's a good way to put it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, given all the bluffing and everything in the game. But I think if you have two players that really decide to give it a go, this is one of the nice things is you can probably play in a lunch hour,
Yes.
and have a blast, and especially if you played multiple games against each other, I think there's a lot of maybe metagaming or something that you can build up to and so forth. So
Although
um,
that said, NATO, I think for your first few games, give yourself your lunch break of being an hour and a half. Just
yeah,
for
maybe yeah, take an extra long lunch. Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, because as I said, it's a little bit trickier than you expect. I remember when I first sat down with it, I'm like, oh, this is coin light. This will be easy. And I played coin games and so forth,
Yep.
but it took a little while to kind of figure out interactions and how to get things done.
Okay, so
And
NATO, here's the question then. Who is this game for?
um, I think it's for people who are interested in, I think if you're interested in the theme, I think this is actually, and you're willing, you're generally, if you're interested in the theme, you're willing to learn, what you want to learn. And I think it'll be a great game for that. I would say it's for those people that have maybe begun to get into wargaming, but they're not yet at the point where they're sitting down with a 50-page rule book or whatever. But maybe they're kind of getting dissatisfied with the family game side of things and they want to kind of step it up. But this is a part of that on ramp, I think. It's very much in in the same way that Twilight Struggle, Red Sea, Conflict in the Horn of Africa is
Right.
a great introduction to Twilight Struggle. it's a nice appetizer before you get the main meal.
So when you said earlier that this game is deceptively, you think it's simple, but there's a
Complex.
there,
Yeah.
yeah, there's underlying currents of challenge in this game. My first thought was that this is for g coin gamers.
Yeah.
If you're a coin gamer already, you'll pick this up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think you're going to enjoy it.
Yes, actually, I think you're not wrong. I think if you're a coin gamer and you've only got one opponent and you only have an hour or so, like a lunch hour, this is actually perfect. That's actually a great audience for this game as well,
Yep, yep, yep.
for sure.
And when you mentioned that, how this is very thematically on point, I
Yep.
totally agree from the card, the different card events to the artwork to even the bluffing to the robbing feature to the prison, like everything about this game is Robin Hood,
Yes.
which
And
is
there's a
pretty cool.
lot to like about how it all hangs together, actually. There's one last thing I just want to say that I forgot that I really like. It's actually the initiative track. Choosing whether you're going to do a single plot, event, plots and deeds, and then
Yep.
that blocks it for the other player.
Yes.
And this is, I think this was already used in, I think the British Way, which is another coin game. But I just think it's so brilliant, especially having this as the sheriff. If you pass with a single plot, you just get 1 shilling. Event gives you two, and plots and deeds gives you three. That may change Robin Hood's decision as to what they're going to do. Because
Yes.
if they know the sheriff's low on money, and they, oh, maybe I'll take the plots and deeds just to limit their income. And there's a lot of kind of fun aspects to that. There's a lot of neat decisions to be made in this game, actually.
And actually, I think there's a fair bit of depth with that whole initiative track as well that we haven't
Yeah,
really scratched the surface on, I think,
yeah,
because
absolutely,
I was already
absolutely.
starting to puzzle together some different combos that I may want to, try to inflict on you next game.
Yeah. Well, and just like for example, when I saw you moved into Blythe with those four Merrymen, I'm like, oh, if I take single plot, then I can capture, and I won't capture them all, but then I go again, and as long as the event's
You do the
not
next that kind of thing,
killer,
right?
then I
Start working like
can
a
take them
stacking.
all.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
Yep.
that was very much usage of the initiative track. So anyway, um, sorry to ramble with this review a little bit, but what's your final verdict, Cax, on
You
this
know
one?
what? If you asked to sit down and play this game with me, I definitely I'd sit at the table. I'd fire it up with you for sure.
Yeah. I think this game is excellent, and I think the more you play it, the more you appreciate it,
Absolutely.
and what's going on. Honestly, it's really that good, and it's light enough that it's going to get to the table. I think that's the one challenge with coin games, the traditional ones, is their length. Fire in the Lake, amazing game, but you're going to take 6 to 8 hours to play, especially with four players. Um, and this one can be done in an hour, and I think or less. And I think that that's amazing. So anyway, until next time, don't forget to get out there
Get gaming.
and be legendary.